Lalias Nishmas Mata Maita.
I don't know how they
Maita
say it.
Yehudis Bas Dov Bear. Don't you give the mother's name? Oh, this is your side. Your side, okay. Neshama should have an aliyah.
Amen.
Okay, Hashem should give me Siyata D'Shmaya, what we're going to talk about today. Okay, we're going, hold on. We're going into the water. Okay, so,
Fasten your seatbelt.
fasten your
Somebody else
seatbelts. Okay, let me get this thing to work, and then it'll be wonderful. New one. Right, so today's shiur, we just finished Parshas Noach. We're learning Lalias Nishmas Maita Yehudis Bas Dov Bear. We are in the transition between Noach and Avrohom, and today we're going to define some of the differences between Noach and Avrohom and some of the similarities. Because as we know, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells us a link between Noach and Avrohom, an important link. It says that the fifth parak, Asara Doros mi Noach v'ad Avraham mi Adam ad Noach lahagid kama erech hapaim lefanov. Hashem was very patient with those 10 generations. He allowed them to give them a chance to do tshuva. Did not see movement in that direction. Ad shehevi aleihem mehamabel, and the result was that the mabel happened. And then it continues the Mishnah, Asara Doros mi Noach v'ad Avram. Avram was the 10th generation from Noach. Same language. Lehodia kama erech hapaim lefanov, to show Hashem's infinite patience. Right? Shekol Doros hayu machlisim ubayim, all the generations, it says regarding both tens, were machlisin ubayim, they angered God. They rebelled against God. Ad Sheba Avram v'kibel alav schar kulam. That's the girsa that I find most informative. It means that Avram took responsibility to bring them back, and the world was not destroyed. So the big difference between Noach and Avram, now some read v'kibel schar kulam, Avram got the reward that was destined for everybody else. But as we will see, that's not exactly true. Avram was the one who took responsibility that the world will be brought to its tikkun and not destroyed. Why? Because his progeny received the Torah, and without the Torah, chukos shamayim v'aretz lo samti, the world doesn't go by its natural laws that were established, right? After the Mabul, Hashem told us in Parshas Noach that there's going to be the 4 seasons, and they're going to run. Rashi iterates them. The summer, the winter, the planting season, etc. Each one being a period of 2 months, and the world will continue. This is, by the way, I will throw this in, the biggest refutation to the what I would call insanity of climate change. Here I'm going public about it. Is the audacity to go against a direct pasuk in the Torah. Hashem guarantees us that the seasons will not change. It is a beferish pasuk in Parshat Noach. And that's my response. I don't answer, I'm not talking scientific data, this or that. It's a Rashi, and it's a pasuk, and it's a Rashi, that the seasons, the planting season, the summer season, the winter season, will never cease. Well, that refutes global warming. And that's my bekitzer refutation of it. End of story. So why was it that Avraham was successful in having the Torah begin with him? As we have learned, the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that the world is divided into 3 segments of time, 6,000 years, divided by 3 into 3 parts. The first 2,000 years, tohu vavohu. That's the era of the Mabul, which included the Mabul. The Mabul was in the year 1656. And Avram was born in 1948.
Right.
Popular date in Israel. And he began teaching Torah at age 52. which brings us to the year 2000. Where was Avram? Avram was in his, what many believe to be his hometown. Avram was imprisoned in Ur Kasdim, and they tried to execute him there. But his hometown was Haran, which is northern Iraq, close to Turkey. Not that far from Mount Ararat, where Noach landed, right? Ararat. So actually, even geographically, Noach and Avram were not all that far apart. That's not a humongous distance to travel. Avram traveled all the way down from the tips of the Iraqi-Iran border. That's where Ur Kasdim is. It's on the Iraqi side of the Persian Gulf. Persian Gulf, or what is that sea called? It's the water that divides the tip of Iraq and the tip of Iran. And that was a long journey to go back to Haran and eventually Eretz Yisrael. But many Meforshim feel that why did Terach take Avrohom out of Ur Kasdim and go to Haran? Terach did it, right? Because he was a great tzaddik? We don't see that Terach is a great tzaddik. Because they went home. And where does Terach die? And where does he stay? Haran, which is the hometown. So now that makes sense. And Avram was told from there, this week's parsha, as we're starting, Lech Lecha. He's told in Haran, continue the journey. And go from that area, which is northern Iraq towards Turkey, right? And begin to go down the Fertile Crescent. It's going to take you through Syria, Lebanon, and into Eretz Yisrael. He didn't cross over the Yarden. Unlike the Jewish people who didn't cross over the Yarden, his journey took him north-south from riding down the Fertile Crescent. Okay. So now, we need to understand a little bit more about Noach before we can compare him to Avram. The Zohar tells us a couple of important things about Noach. First of all, an obscure but well-quoted medrash explains the answer to the following very simple question about Noach. When Noach was born, his father, Lamach, right? There's two Lamachs. One Lamach is the father of Noach, and the other Lamach is the father of Noach's wife, Naamah. Lamach, the father of Naamah, was the one with the two wives, Ada and Silla, right? And he's the guy that ends up killing his seventh generation Zaidi, Cain. Who kills him? Tuval Cain. Tuval Cain is a spicy Cain. Why? Cain was a murderer. Tuval Cain created weapons of murder and destruction. So the first real inventors in the world were the descendants of Lamach on either side. Lamach from the generation of Cain and Lamach from the generations of Sheis ben Noach. That began the era of technological innovation. Tuval Cain created nothing that was going to help mankind, unless you want to consider weapons of defense. Let's not get into NRA politics here. But essentially, pro-weapon, anti-weapon, but whatever it was instruments of death and destruction. Naamah, his sister, ends up marrying Noach, the other great technocrat. I'm going to call Noach a technocrat, which means Noach, from his very birth, was the one who innovated for man technology that would help him promote his life and well-being. So you can see Tuval Cain and Noach, both sons of Lamach, as kind of polar opposites. Very, very relevant analogy to today. There are some that use technology that creates mortal danger for mankind, and there are some that use technology in the service of mankind. The first and most powerful, innovative person was Noach. Now, how do we know this? So the pasuk says, when Lamach saw him, it says, Vayoled ben. It doesn't say Vayoled Noach. The pasuk says, Vayoled ben, he had a son. And he called that son Noach, right? Why? What does the pasuk say? Who remembers the pasuk? They said a reason why. Right, let's read it from the pasuk, please. Let's take the chumash. We have a chumash handy. Let's just please read that, so everybody is clear and that we don't misquote a pasuk. Do you remember what Lamech said about his son Noach when he was born? From the moment he was born, something was different about this child. That's the end of Bereshis. Okay. So it says in Perek Hey, Pasuk Chaf Ches, that Lamech lived for Shtayim U'Shmonim Shana, 82 years, U'Ma'at Shana, which is rather long, and he vayoled ben, he had a son. Vayikra et shmo Noach lemor, as if to say, Ze yenachamenu mima'asenu umi'itzvon yadenu min ha'adama asher erura Adonai. Notice erura and ara rat, very close. So what was it? What are they saying? What does the pasuk mean? It says Lamech lived 182 years and begot a son. Unlike in all the other, it gives us the name, right? He gave birth to someone. Here we find the naming of the child to be something unusual, different. And he called his name Noach, saying, "This one will bring us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, from the ground which Hashem has cursed." How did he know that? How could they possibly know that this infant will help them from the curse of Adam Harishon?
Because of the hands.
Okay. So what was the curse of Adam Harishon? So there's a lot of different medrashim that suggests that Adam Harishon, and there's a big machlokas about this in the Avrohom. We're not going to go into details right now, whether Adam was born with a closed hand, a webbed hand, or an open fingers. Noach was born with two things unblocked. His fingers were not webbed, and he was born with a bris milah. And they took this to mean that the curse of Adam, which is associated with taiva, right? And hence, Adam, as it said, developed an urge, a taiva for his wife that was unnatural, because the animals have relations when it's time to reproduce. End of story. They may be friends, they may be partners, it doesn't mean that they're away from each other, but in terms of procreation, that's what it is, limited to, whereas man will seek that urge even not relative to the act of pru urvu, irrespective of the act of pru urvu. And that's when things start to get problematic, okay? So they saw in the birth of Noach a change, that the curse of Adam was lifting. And some suggest, I heard a very, very nice pshat, he says, Ze yenachamenu, from what? This one is going to give us a rest from what? From itzvon yodenu, the difficulties that we have, mitzvon yodenu min ha'adama. We can't cultivate the earth. And Rashi says that Noach innovated tools, plows, hoes, sickles, to cultivate the earth. Noach was the first one. He made it easy for them. What were they doing up until that point? They were shoveling with their hands. Now that's not very effective. You can't do much with a closed hand. You can't manipulate instruments without fingers. Noach was the first one who had fingers, and therefore he represents the birth of technology to bring food and welfare to mankind. And he doesn't stop there. Of course, he goes on to build the Teva, which is a miniature world. Isn't it a miniature world? It contains all the animals. It has sections for everyone. And he has to play the role of God, which is Hazon Asa Olam Kulo Betuvo B'chein B'chesed U'Rachamim. Noach takes on the role that Hashem assigned him to be his shaliach, to create a miniature world, a keva, which would be a holy world, a not-corrupted world, a world that wasn't from the 10 generations of Adam till Noach, but a world which was with a brit with Hashem. In fact, what's the symbol? What's the symbol of the bris between Hashem and Noach?
The rainbow.
The rainbow. Now, what does the rainbow represent? What does the keshet represent? Besides Kisei HaKavod, Kedusha, Shechina, and therefore Hashem was purifying the world. This the Zohar says that the Mabul was a mikvah. The Mabul was a mikvah tahara. Noach was born mahul. Noach was born without a bris milah, without an orla, because he was a holy person. Noach ish tzaddik, tamim. What does it say about Avrohom Avinu when he had a bris? That Hashem says to him, "Holech lefanai," and you're going to be tamim. Tamim tiem Hashem elokecha. All these things mean a bris, a kedusha, that you don't seek a relationship with God that is through some sort of separation, block, or intermediary. Okay? And that is unique to Noach. Noach was the opening the hope of mankind. So if we're defining Noach as the first technocrat, okay? First technocrat, first scientist. I'm going to call him the first scientist. Again, Tuval Kayin made weapons of destruction, but gee thanks, that's not going to save the world. Noach is the scientist whose job is to literally save the world. I'm going to call it the difference between holy technology and unholy technology. Now, there are the failure of Noach was to save the rest of the world. He could only save a portion of the world that was untainted. So the difference between Noach and Avram is that Avram could save the world that was already tainted. He could restore them. Avram wasn't only technological. He was a they call it a professor. Today, in Israel, everything is about being a professor. When you have a PhD, you're called a professor. Did you know that? Whether you teach or not, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah. Professor. Now, if you're a professor, you're an expert. And so there is an expertise in different areas. Noach's expertise was to care for the perfected world. If they were unspoiled, right, he could handle them. If they were tainted, there's nothing he could do with them. So he threw up his hand. When Hashem comes to him and says, I'm going to save the world through you, and these guys are unsalvageable, he says, you're right. There's nothing we can do for them. They're from the generations of Cain, and they're the generations between Adam and me, and they're not redeemable. Not redeemable. Okay? So Noach's position was that there is redeemable and irredeemable, but that mankind as a whole is almost 100%, a tiny fraction, could not be saved. Comes Avram Avinu and says, it's the other way around. Everybody can be saved. What's the proof? For example, Midrashim about Avram and Esav. What does the Midrash say about Esav and Avram's relationship? Were they close? Very close. Very close. When does Avram die? How old is Esav when Avram die? How old is Esav when Avram dies? 15 years old. What happens at that day that Avram died? Remember, Yaakov's making the Nazira Dashim, which is the Sudas Havra'ah, the Avelus meal. Okay, what's happened on that day? That day, Esav committed how many sins? 5 sins. Interesting. 5 sins. The hand, and they're elucidated in the pasuk, the beginning of Parshas Toldos. Okay, it says, V'Yaakov natan le'esav lechem u'nezida dashim, v'yochal, v'yesht, v'yokam, v'yelech, v'yivez esav es bechora. He ate, he drank, he got up, he left. Okay? And he despised the birthright. Mefarshim here say it represents 5 sins that he did on that day. He murdered, he adulterated, he ate, he drank. That's he spilled blood, drinking like drinking blood, until eventually, after he did all these averos, he used to take women, steal them from their husbands, and violate them, and then he would murder the husbands if they gave him a hard time, and then eventually what happened is, by Yokam, he began to question Hashem's authority in the world. By Yokam, he stood up against Hashem. It was a theological rebellion against Hashem. Less din v'less dayan. There's no accountability to Hashem. There's only personal human will. And Vayelech, he discounts his belief in an afterlife. And finally, he despises the Bechorah. The service of Hashem becomes irrelevant to him. Man no longer was created to serve God. Man serves himself. 5 averos. He used that yad, again, for selfish purposes. But as long as Avram Avinu was alive, Esav was a tzaddik gomor. Well, not gomor. He had an inclination from the time he was a baby to go to Vozor. But even with all that evil inclination that would overpower him and remove him from our world, he was such an important and vital figure. You know, we need Esav. We need Hakol Kol Yaakov. Esav. Esav represents technology, power, might, weaponry in the service of mankind, or it's going to be like Tuval Kain, and you're going to be destroying mankind. But Esav went off the derech, and then we lost a tremendous thing. Who comes to replace that? Who is the next person who's also called a tzaddik, by the way? Yosef. Yosef has to replace Esav. Can you imagine? It would have been Esav HaTzadik. That was his job. His immediate failure was in infidelity. Primarily, the exact opposite of Yosef, who ended up being the tzaddik because he chose to follow Hashem's will and not to follow his desires, right? He had the same opportunity. So Esav HaTzadik, that should have been, that will actually be in the future, as we've studied, but we'll leave that for now. So Yosef HaTzadik and Noach HaTzadik are the same. Now let's think about Yosef for a second. What is Yosef's relationship to scientific knowledge and technology? What was his great achievement?
Saving the time.
Does he feed the whole world?
Yeah.
Just like who did? Just like Noach. We say, Tzaddik Yisod Olam. The Tzaddik is the foundation upon which the world rests. If there's no foundation, there's no stability in life. And stability in life includes Parnasa. I'm saying that as a tefillah.
Amen.
Amen. We need stability. We need Yisod. We need Tzaddikim. So, is it not ironic that just as Yosef gathered everything in the world, all the wealth and all the food, and he actually gathered all the animals too. Do you know that they sold all the animals to Yosef? And then all the human beings became slaves to Yosef, right? He is a Noach. He is Noach. Except that he is the Noach that comes from Avrohom, which means he can save the entire world. Because as long as Yosef was alive, right, everything was good. It was good for Klal Yisrael, and it was good for the nations of the world, because they were being ruled by a tzaddik. The minute Yosef dies, that's when Mitzrayim descends into its pit of Tumah, and Klal Yisrael along with it. Okay, so what we've established is that Noach, the open-fingered, this is the Tzelem Elokim. Why 10? Because there are 10 spheros. There are 10 aspects or elements of God's personality, so to speak, in the world. Our interaction is based on these spheros. And we need it to be open, not to be closed. The interaction with Hashem has to be active, an active relationship. That was Noach's job, but Avram went much further. Now, to that end, I want to comment on an unusual part of the Noach story, and that is, before we go into that, I just want to mention, there's a Gemara in Ksubas that speaks about a mitzvah for each one of the 5 fingers. Okay? So think about the 5 fingers for a second with me, the open fingers. What mitzvah is performed with each of those fingers? Correct. The 4th finger, this is Gemara in Ksubas Hamad Beis, says that, when the Kohen Gadol takes, the amount for the offering that's of flour, and by the way, for the same thing for Ketores, right? He gathers up the 3 fingers worth, so it's what he can contain up till the 4th finger. Okay? Every finger has a unique mitzvah. The pinky is used to measure the distance between the pinky and the thumb. This is called a zeres. Zeres is used to measure the length of the chain of the choshen. That's the length. It's called the zeres. This is the measure. Zeres means from here to here. Okay, so we need the pinky because of the choshen. What does the choshen represent? Mishpat, but also Torah, because when we don't know something, we ask the Kohen Gadol, Be'urim V'tumim, so it also represents Nevuah, and Torah is a form of Nevuah. Moshe received the Torah by Nevuah, but then we have to go learn the Torah with our own minds, right? So the pinky represents that. This is a form of Kemitza, which is that we're dedicating our food, and our work, so to speak, B'Kedusha, right? That's the 4th finger. The 3rd finger is the Amma. When you measure an Amma, you measure from here to the tip of the 3rd finger. That really represents man's use of space and technology, right? Space. Amma is a measurement of space. You build stuff. You build a house. You build a building. Distance. Makom. That realm, the Kedusha of that realm is symbolized by this finger. What about this finger? Isn't there a song like, where is Thumbkin? Where is this one? Pointer. Well, you can do, Malika is actually done with this finger, but they sprinkle the Mizbeach, man's capacity for tshuva. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're not Hashem. We have to do tshuva. Okay? And right. Zu zeres, zu kemitza, zu ama, zu etzba, zu godel. Now, what is the godel used for? Well, one thing the godel is used for, the thumb. What's the special mitzvah of the thumb? Is that if you remember, when somebody's a mitzorah, or even to dedicate, better yet, to dedicate Aaron a Kohen, the Gemara says here, they would put the sacred oil on his thumb and on this toe thumb, right, on the large toe. So what does that represent? Avoda, the sacred service of the Kohanim, the ones that are mitahir others. So look what you got. Look at the 5. I mean, these are halachos, but I like to see it as Chazal telling us a bit more. The zeres, that measure of the pinky till here, has to do with the choshen, and it is, even though it seems like a minor finger, right? But there's a minutia of law that we have to follow. There's halacha. We have to know what to do. We need to follow Hashem's instructions. That's what this seems, and whether they make sense to you, or they don't make sense to you, whether you think they're a big deal, or whether you think they're a little deal. Mitzvos kalos v'chamuros. Little mitzvos as much as big mitzvos. Who are you to say? Mi odea matan schar shel mitzvos. We have to do all the mitzvos. So that's the pinky. And the 4th finger represents our ability to put our foodstuffs, our commerce, or what we use to make a living, so to speak, for Hashem. first and foremost, we see it as from Hashem. And the third finger, which is where we use our technology, which is our mastery of the physical world, to Hashem, Amma, what we build, what we construct, right? What we fill our world with, right? And I'm going to call that man's technology. And then this finger is used for tshuva, that man will have to have the capacity to do tshuva, because we do make mistakes. And then the agodal is kedusha, because not everybody's zocheh to be Aaron HaKohen, not everybody's a Kohen, but within mankind, we need Kohanim to bring us back. In fact, the Metzorah, who is the person that the Kohen has to go check, right? When he's finished with his korban, what do we do to him? We sprinkle on his thumb and on his big toe. You understand? Because the Kohen was consecrated that way so that he would have the power to go down to even the Metzorah, the lowliest person, right? And bring them up.
Isn't the pinky also used for bris milah?
Well, bris milah,
Yeah, that's what Amar told me.
I mean, for the priya
Yeah, right.
I haven't really seen people do priya that way. I've seen them do it with these two fingers. It's just practical because they're pulling down. I haven't seen it. I really haven't seen it. But the five really represent, if you want to be really creative, you could say the five averos here that Esav did are violations of the five mitzvos of the fingers. Okay? So let's see. The five averos of Esav were: one, eating, that was adultery. Drinking was murder, because like you drink the blood. Apostasy, he began to rebel against Hashem, right? He's how shall I say, fighting God's will. The fifth is vayelech. Vayelech, I mean, it continues that he loses his olam haba. You understand? He loses his olam haba because as a result of the growing apostasy and rebelling against Hashem, so the rebellion takes him to a point where he loses his olam haba. And then the last one, 5, is that vayives, he closes the door on tshuva. And even if he could have come back, the worst Rishayim have come back. Menashe Melech Yisrael, Hashem made a special place for him under the Kisei HaKavod to come and do tshuva. Hashem is remarkably forgiving. It says, B'nai Banim Shel Haman were teaching Torah. The B'nai Banim Shel Nebuchadnezzar taught Torah. Nebuzadron, who murdered 900,000 Jews over the blood of Zechariah Hanavi. He became a Ger Tzedek. He becomes Hashem. It's not like our intellect. Hashem wants the person to be good, and what he has done in the past, we'll deal with it. There'll be reckoning for it, but that's not the point. But when you close the door, Vayives Esav Asabachora, he literally closed the door on it altogether. So one could think about how Vayives is anti the thumb, because he